What's going on, Sean?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going. It's been a long time.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about it this morning. I was wondering how many years ago that was in Vancouver.
Yeah, for people who don't know, basically how we met was I was in Vancouver and I looked over and I had seen it. I guess you were doing a class or a certification.
I was out, I think it was, I don't know if that was the downtown one or if it was maybe in White Rock or something like that, but I was definitely out there giving a kettlebell instructor certification.
Yeah, I looked over and I had never seen so many people in a class. And I was like, I gotta meet this guy. Cause people like it was crazy, like how many people showed up for that kettlebell
Yeah, yeah,
class.
that one was packed, and it was actually really funny. Part of the reason that there were so many trainers there was before I showed up, one of my students had moved out to BC.
Mm.
Cut to, I get a call from the fitness manager out there, and or the director of programming, and he's like, "Is this Shawn?" I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "Yeah, we got to talk. One of your guys in the other day." So I'm trying to roll through my head like, what could have happened? This sounds not good, but turned out it was really good because what had happened was one of my guys just went in for a workout, and
Oh.
he started just using kettlebells. He was just on the floor and he was just doing his workout, minding his business. And according to the guy who was the director for the education for those clubs, he said it became very obvious to everyone, including the clients, that there was only one person in that gym that day that knew how to use a kettlebell, and it wasn't any of the trainers there. So,
Oh.
and he, and the guy, to his credit, he told me, I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "How do we fix that?"
Mm.
Told him simply, you get your people together. I jump on a plane. I'll come over there and we'll fix that. We'll make sure everybody knows what they're doing.
Nice.
And that's what we did. Yeah.
Oh, well, honestly, that's kind of when I started to really look into kettlebells and, the value of it as a, training and this and that. But give us some insight on how you got into kettlebell training. Like, tell us the story.
Well, it was, I mean, now it's so many years ago. It's over 20 years ago. So for people that are listening, try to imagine a time where you couldn't go into a store and buy a kettlebell in
Mm.
Canada. You couldn't walk into a gym and see a rack of them. I mean, there was nothing. I think I had the third kettlebell video on YouTube, just like a clip, and that was it. There was nothing. There was no education. It was still really unknown. Um, and I just stumbled kind of accidentally into it because I was training people in martial arts, training people in different things. I was looking for something to supplement the martial arts training. And
Mm.
at that time, I happened to be teaching a few Russian guys
Mm.
that would show me kind of weird lifts. Like I would teach them some martial arts, and then one of them would tell me, he's like, "Oh, this is good. Do this." And
Mm.
I'm like, "What's that?" And you do like a bent press with a barbell.
Mm.
Like, that's cool. What's that? And then so we would talk about different lifts and different kind of, like, he would call it circus stuff. Goes, we'll do more circus stuff. And then he mentioned kettlebells, so they were kind of on my radar. And when I asked him, what do you do with them, he's like, it's like all this other stuff that he was showing me. And right around that time, Pavel had done, I think, a couple of certs, maybe a handful at most, but just a few. So I was like, oh, this seems to be that thing that my Russian guys are telling me about. And, looking back, I'm not sure why I jumped on a plane and went and checked it out. I guess that my level of curiosity far exceeded, my rationale, because it wasn't the most, rational thing to do, especially when I got back. It's like, okay, I have training. But back then, the exchange rate was something like double. So,
Wow.
and the shipping was insane, and the duty was insane. So if you, and the price for a kettlebell was really crazy. So if I wanted to train someone, like let's say I was going to train you, and I wanted you to buy yourself a kettlebell, and then I would come, and put you through a workout. That kettlebell, like 16-kilo bell, was going to cost you close to $300 by the time you got through with everything, right?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So business wise, it seemed like a totally insane thing to do,
Mm.
but I was kind of curious enough that I wanted to check it out. And then when I got back, I knew that there was something there, that I could put this together in a way for people that would really excite them and help them.
Mm.
And that's set the course for introducing kettlebells all across Canada and then eventually teaching around the world.
Yeah, you are the pioneer who basically brought kettlebells to Canada for people who don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was the first one to create, instructional courses, to create, back then it was DVDs. So I had the first two Canadian DVDs. I had the first Canadian workbook, the first course, first person to travel from coast to coast, giving seminars in every province. And thankfully, word spread about the quality of the education. And as my students moved around and people got exposed to them, people would start to ask, like, where did you learn? And, oh, would that guy come here? So, I had a student, go to Ireland, and he started working in a gym there. And the next thing I know, the gym is contacting me and they're saying, hey, will you come to Ireland? I'm like, sure, I'll go anywhere. As long as we've got a few people that want to learn. My motto was, yeah, I got a passport, I'll jump on a plane. And it's the same these days.
wow.
As long as there's people that want to learn. I get messages and somebody will say, do you have an instructor here, or will you come down here? It's like, yeah, I'll come. Just get some people together that want to learn, and I'm happy to go. And I'm still as excited teaching it over 2 decades later, because I know what's going to be the future for the people that are standing in front of me. I see how excited they are with it, and I know the results they're going to get.
Give us some insight for people who are a little bit green on kettlebells in terms of like how long is a workout? Does it work your whole
Yeah.
body? Just kind of give us
Sure.
some backstory on how to operate the kettlebell.
I think the first thing to understand is just to demystify some stuff, and also take away the marketing. A lot of things get popular because of marketing, and then they get a backlash because of marketing. Look, when people were first introduced to kettlebells in North America, and in particular in the United States, the marketing was and still is kind of like, the kettlebell is the secret weapon of the Soviet Spetsnaz, and that gets a bunch of people like really like, oh yeah, and then a bunch of other people are like, what are you talking about? What is this? And you had people that their knee-jerk reaction to some of the marketing was, oh, come on, this is a gimmick. So the first thing to understand is kettlebell's been around for a very long time. And there's a reason for that. And the other thing, it's a free weight. So, if somebody wants to, criticize marketing, they can, but free weights work. We know they do. They work great, right? You have to work to stabilize the weights. You have to do this. You have to do that. So a free weight is such a powerful thing. And what's interesting about these free weights is their unique design will have some unique qualities and bring some unique qualities to your workout. That being said, you can put those workouts together in a wide variety of ways, especially if you're not shackled by some kind of style idea. So in kettlebell, you often have people refer to, oh, I do kettlebell sport, or I do the fitness version, which these are horrible labels that make no sense. For example, in the sport, you might have a 145-pound guy who comes up with 2 72-pound kettlebells and does clean and jerk for 10 minutes. You don't think he's fit? He's obviously fit. And the same thing with people that are doing the quote unquote fitness version. Sometimes they're not doing the classic approach. They think they're doing Russian kettlebell training, but what they've been taught is not the classic version. It might be good, but the labels don't really tell the story. So in terms of a workout, there's so many fun things you can do. For example, I'll be teaching later tonight at my gym, and what's on the menu for tonight is after we do a warm up, we're gonna use some Indian clubs. We're gonna warm up. We're gonna practice some technique. Then we're going to run some circuits. And these are circuits that I do with a lot of different type of people, and in particular with athletes, and I put MMA fighters through it. And we will use the kettlebell, and especially, again, because of the handle, because it's easy to pass from hand to hand, and it just lends itself really well to that. We might do 30 seconds in exercise and then switch. 30 seconds in exercise, then switch to a new one. We'll do 3 or 4 minute rounds, depending on what kind of shape people are in, and then 1 minute rest, and then go like that. So that could be a way to do it. Last week we were doing deadlifts, single leg deadlifts with the kettlebell, and mixing it in with other training modalities in the gym. Kettlebell is such a versatile tool, and because the techniques require some study and some polishing, just like anything that's really good that people stick with. You think about barbell training. There's so much. You can get lost in learning how to do a clean and jerk. Because there's so much depth to it. You're never going to get bored. It's the same thing with the kettlebell.
So for athletes, like say for myself, let's say I'm working out 6 days a week and I call you up and I say, hey Sean, I want to incorporate this, kettlebell into my routine, but I still want to keep working
Yeah,
out. Are you thinking like, hey, this is going to be its own workout, or are you kind of like thinking like, hey, let's put it into what you're currently
that's
doing?
a good question, and it totally depends. Everything has to be tailored to the individual, right?
Mm,
I have some people that come to train me. They're athletes. They're competing in a particular sport. I see my job as a supplement to what they're doing with their coach and what they're doing in terms of practicing for their competitions. My main goal in that case is not to screw them up in any way,
mm,
not to screw up the main focus of the training, but really to supplement it.
mm,
So when they come in, we might be doing something completely separate with the kettlebell, or if they have certain things that we have to do as part of their training, we can use the kettlebell, in there. Like let's say we want to do thrusters, we want to do this, we want to do that. Some people we want to get some front squats in, um, or they're dealing with some injuries. They've got bad overhead mobility that's going to kind of preclude them from using one kind of piece of an apparatus. We go to kettlebell or we go to something else. So it totally depends. In some cases, I have people that want to do those rounds. They're like, look, I'm doing some workouts already and, sport specific. What I want is I want to kind of get, a strength endurance workout, but I want it to be different from what I'm doing already. I want it to
mm,
be kind of like a completely tax me in a different way. So the kettlebell is kind of perfect for that. So
mm.
totally depends on the individual. That's why it's so important, um, for the trainer to really find out what you're doing. What's your schedule like? What's everything going like? And for the client to be as honest as possible with it.
Mm. Like for yourself, give us some insight on what your training would look like with the kettlebell. Like, are you training 6 days a week kind of thing? Like, are you using weights
Yeah, for
as
me,
well?
goals have always been, or at least for the longest time, to be a good generalist. And
Mm,
for me, that is somebody that's fit for life. So
mm,
people always ask me, "What are you training for?" I'm 50 now. I'll be 51 in September.
mm,
So 51 in September. And if a friend calls me up and says, "You want to go for a run?" Sure. And I don't have to ask him how far. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, what?
mm,
You want to go for a run? You want to go for a ride? You want to swim? You want to go surf? You want to, yeah, whatever you want to do. I'm good. I'm good to
mm,
go. Right.
mm,
That to me has always been the reason for training.
mm,
Tonight I'll go and I'll teach a class, and then after I'm teaching jujitsu, and I can, on the weekend we did a sparring class, so 8-minute rounds, a little over an hour, nonstop, and
mm,
at 50 that was no problem.
mm,
So that's what I'm training for. I'm training to be able to age gracefully and not have to stop doing and enjoying all the things that I enjoy doing in life. So I spread my training around, and sometimes depending on travel I'll adjust things, but usually when I come into the gym on Monday, usually that's a barbell day. So I will come in and I'm doing classic lifts like like deadlift, sometimes box squats. I'll work with the barbell on Monday, and I have to again teach and train in the evening, so I have to be careful. How do I program everything? On Tuesday, it's usually kettlebells and body weight. So I can be working on handstands and I can be working on calisthenics. And depending on my timing and what's going on and what's going to happen later in the day, I can divide them up. Usually, I will do the kettlebells after the handstands. So for a
mm,
lot of people that are working on like skills like that, like if they're trying to get their one-arm handstand or something like that, it's better to do the technical things early in the training, and then I can polish things off with some kettlebell circuits if I want to do a burner before I leave.
mm,
And usually the week kind of gets divided up like that.
mm.
And if I'm traveling, things get a little bit complicated as I'm going for a seminar. Then I fit it in wherever I can fit it in, and I fit it in whatever I can fit in. So as I said, if I'm heading somewhere and I know people, and it's going to be a good day to go surf, I'd rather be outside surfing than lifting weights. So
Mm.
you know,
So I had a prior to this call, I had a few women ask me, what can Sean give us some one exercise or a few exercises for building their glutes? I know a lot of the women see the kettlebell and they may, feel a certain way. What are your thoughts? And do you have any sort of, feedback on how women can incorporate kettlebell to build their glutes?
one of the things that I told people at years and years ago, I was making that reference before to how kettlebells were really marketed towards men a
Mm,
lot, and in particular like men 18 to 35 that want to pretend to be tough. That a lot of the marketing was all about that. Everything was, super macho. I told the first group here that I gave a cert to, I think women will be one of the fastest growing markets for kettlebells. And when people asked why, I said, well, look at the things that typically you find in a gym, the classes that you find in a gym that are so full of women. They're all skill based. It's yoga classes, it's Pilates, it's all these things that have these depth in the movements, right? Plus they're full body workouts. When you finish doing kettlebell circuits, and in particular something with swings with a reasonable amount of weight, right? And that's always a thing. It has to be a weight that challenges you. I don't want you to be buried under it and your form is horrible and you're at risk for an injury, but I also don't want you to be lifting something that's way below you, right? So I want it at the edge of your capacity. When you do a circuit and you finish like that, where are you going to feel it the next day and the next few days? You're going to feel your legs, you're going to feel your butt, you're going to feel all of that, especially with high tension swings. And that right away speaks to people. So if someone is looking for that full body workout and they're looking for just something where they don't want to be sitting there thinking about, I wonder how many calories I burned. I wonder about this. I wonder about what do you want to do? You want to get a crazy calorie burn. You want to get your heart rate up and you want to feel like you can break a coconut off your butt and, make somebody a margarita. So the kettlebell is the way to go. Right?
Yeah. Nice.
Also, as soon as you feel that kind of workout, but you need somebody that can show you how to do it properly, because you have so many people. Like the swing is a great exercise, snatches are great exercise. There's so many things. It's like anything, a barbell is great. It's a great tool, but it's only as great as the person that's using it, right? It's the same thing with a kettlebell. A lot of people, unfortunately, they'll just look online, they see a few exercises, they don't know what they don't know. And because you don't know what you don't know how risky something might be, But I try to tell people, look, you're investing time, effort, and all this kind of sweat equity into something. So learn it right and really make sure you're getting the most out of it. It's not the time to just go, oh, I'll figure it out. Even when you look online, how do you know who you're looking at if they know anything? The great thing about what we have now with social media, which we're sitting on talking right now, the great thing about social media is everyone has a voice. And the horrible thing is everyone has a voice. You don't know if the person teaching you knows anything about the subject, right?
This is true.
I mean, how many times have I watched a video? I watched one the other day. Someone was showing like the Jenga and Capoeira, this is the movement where they move from side to side. And his opening line was literally, I don't do Capoeira. Let me show you this. This is how you do the Jenga. So wait a minute. Your thought process was, I don't do a thing. Let me make a video teaching the thing. And this is not an abnormal, way of approaching content creation anymore. There are so many people putting stuff out and they really don't live with this material. They haven't spent time in the material. They don't know what they're talking about. So, it's very important to make sure you have a good teacher. Otherwise, you may learn the wrong thing and you might get really good at it.
Is there any kettlebell contests or challenges? And have you ever been involved? And can you give us some insight on that?
There are kettlebell competitions and they're all over the place. I competed a little bit when I came back from Russia because some of the Russian coaches there asked me to. They thought it would be good, to kind of bring awareness in North America to that. To be honest, it's too much of a specialization for me in terms of my training. All my training at that moment was geared towards, doing the clean and jerk with the kettlebell and trying to get the numbers up. And that's not for me. Like I said, I enjoy going to the gym and I want to do jiu-jitsu. I want to kickbox. I want to, do all the training that supplements my lifestyle. I don't want to focus on just competing. I competed when I was a kid, and that to me is not where I find joy in my training anymore. For people that do like that, kettlebell sport is very interesting because someone who maybe would never think about entering a like a weightlifting competition, they would be intimidated. Maybe they would never go to CrossFit and think about competing, or it would be really a high barrier for entry. That same person who may be very deconditioned or not in great shape, that same person armed with a little bit of basics can kind of join a team. They can grab the lightest kettlebell they can get their hands on. They can go on the platform and maybe they'll only last for 2 minutes, but you know what? It's 2 minutes more than people sitting at home did. And all of a sudden, they're part of a weightlifting team and they're competing. And that's a powerful thing. That's a great thing because now they're getting in shape. Their focus is on something other than just losing weight and body comp. And those things will happen. They will come. So I've seen a lot of people go to kettlebell sport that way. And then even just certain benchmark things, if they're not interested in competing, there's some really fun strength endurance kind of benchmarks with a kettlebell, 100 snatches with one hand change, let's say for men doing a 24 kilo bell or women a 16, that's an interesting benchmark to play around with. So there are different things like that that are really fun. And because it's so vast and it's so diverse, it doesn't have to just be, kettlebell sport. Because like anything, that's not for everyone.
What about, for people out there who can't connect with you in person, do
Mm-hmm.
you offer any sort of online courses or, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I do a few different things. We do it a few different ways. I'm always traveling and I'm giving, certification seminars all over the place for, kettlebells, and we have a mobility program that we certifications for as well. So we're always training trainers. But COVID paused a lot of things for everyone. A lot of gyms, suffered. A lot of trainers suffered. One positive thing that came out of it, it forced me to try and do online kettlebell certifications, which I really wasn't keen on doing before. At first, we did them on Zoom, where I could just watch people, and I had a big TV set up, and I watched you, I corrected you, and we supplemented it with videos in the back end of agatsu.com. And I was actually shocked at how good people were after doing that. And so even post-COVID, we're like, all right, we're keeping that. And then I realized the other stumbling block for it was a lot of people were coming on the Zoom sessions, but because they were in different parts of the world, it was like 3 a.m. for students in different spots. And they were like, just struggling to stay awake. They had worked a full day and they were just trying to stay up for the course. So I recently launched one that's a self-paced one. And it is packed full of seminar material and also just technical material. And so people will work their way through the videos practicing, and then they will do homework assignments and send it to me. I will give them feedback. In some cases, I'll even get a video feedback, send it back to them. They will work on it and then send it. So this so far has been great. We're getting a really, really good result. And in a way, I would never say it's better than being there in person, because there's something about when we're talking and we're interacting right away that's obviously the best. But if you can imagine, like you saw me teaching that seminar in Vancouver, those people, whatever I was saying to them, it's in the moment, and once that moment is gone, right? They have to try and remember what I said, and they have to try and remember and try and duplicate the technique as best that they can. When you're doing the online course, you can watch a video, you hear the explanation, you go and you practice it. Then maybe you go to the gym the next day, you're training it again. Then you can open it up, you can review the video again. That moment just continues. You keep going back and polishing your technique by reviewing and hearing it again and again and again. And the result's amazing. So it's really, really good. So I do that. We have online courses people can learn like that. I also, in some cases, if people want to do one-on-ones online and I'm not in their city or I'm not coming through their city, then they can contact me and we can book a one-on-one. Because sometimes people have questions about a specific technique that they've been struggling with or a specific problem. And if I can work through it at a distance with them, then I'm happy to do that. And it basically, it saves them a ton of time, I'll travel to Las Vegas to train with my jiu-jitsu instructor, Henry Akins. And, sometimes I'll have a new student, they're like, oh, you go all the way there? And I'm like, yeah, because Henry will save me years trying to figure out something on my own. Just, 1 hour sitting with him and getting to train and getting to ask him questions is just pushing my training just years ahead. So it's such an invaluable thing.
Is there any move that you're trying to currently master right now, something that you're working on?
I'm always working on the fundamentals. Always. Everyone always wonders or asks me what I'm doing. you look at social media and you'll see on my social media, there's, especially on my personal one, there's all kinds of different things. And sometimes you might be doing, handstands and, kettlebell or flipping it around or whatever. The social media, you need to get attention. It's a fight. It's a fight to get attention. You put this up and it's a fight to get attention. And because there's just so much noise, there's so much static. So we all have to play the game a little bit. But if you look at my training and you follow me around day to day, most people would be shocked. They would be bored. Even my handstand training would be maybe not boring to everybody, but what goes on social media is the last 4 minutes of what I was doing. That's the okay, we'll do this. Oh yeah, that looks super cool. That'll go on. But always the thing that pays big dividends are the fundamentals, right? It's the fundamentals that your time in on those are going to pay off huge. And it's also going to increase your depth of knowledge on it. And that's the same for anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If you want to be great at anything, you have to master the fundamentals. And if you find that monotonous, then you better become a master of monotony, because you never achieve a high level of technical proficiency in anything unless you really marry yourself to the fundamentals. That's at my gym. That's what I teach over and over again. It doesn't matter what the subject is. You're going to learn the fundamentals. So what are we doing tomorrow? Fundamentals. What are we doing the day after that? Fundamentals, right? I'll find the fun. We'll get the fun in the fundamental, but the more you understand it and the more you spend time really developing fundamentals, there's no limit to what you can do. The people that haven't done that, they're not doing, their homework. It shows. It shows, It might be insta good. You can fake it for a few seconds, but it's not really there. It's not solid.
Do you ever get days or where you're just not feeling your 100%? And, what do you do to sort of, get yourself ready? Say you've, done a few classes and you got another class coming up. What do you do to basically, get yourself in the game?
There's a few things. If it's me training like for myself, there are absolutely days where I don't want to go to the gym, where I don't feel it. I'm tired. I'm sitting. Right now I'm sitting. I have both my dogs. I have 2 rescue dogs. They're sandwiched on my leg. There's just days where I'm just sitting and I'm like, I don't want to get up and train. I just want to sit with my dogs. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
What I'll do is once I have that thought, I make a deal with myself. And that's, okay, I've had the thought, start putting your shoes on. Just put your shoes on and get moving. We'll see what happens, And then I've never left the gym regretting that I did the workout, but I have felt bad about not training, right? So I know, I'm like, okay, this is just your brain messing with you, telling you, hey man, just stay with comfy. We don't need to do anything right now. It's all good. No, I'll get up. As soon as I have that thought, I start moving. But also I can understand, and as you get older, you kind of figure it out. You got to self-regulate, because there are days where I have flown in and it's like an 8-hour time difference and I feel a mess, and I force myself to the gym and I'll do a workout, and you know what? I'm going to feel a mess for days. I went too hard and there was no reason to do it. I could have easily gone, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to do a little run. I'm going to go do a little run, just get out, get some air, get moving. I'm going to, I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to do handstands for a bit. Just going to play around. Just get moving, play around. I'm going to change the workout. So on the personal side, that's what I'll do. When it comes to teaching, and I tell trainers this all the time, look, you're having a bad day. Everybody has a bad day. You're burnt out. You're tired. Yeah, but you know what? Just think about the struggle you have sometimes working out. I know my students that are coming tonight, they're going to fight traffic. They just had a full day in an office. Maybe somebody was yelling at them. Maybe they're stressed out. But you know what? They're coming. They're going to fight their way cross town. Some of my students live pretty far. They're going to fight their way cross town to get to the gym. What? I'm not in a good mood? No, it's not going to happen. I'm tired. I don't have the energy. It's not going to happen. They're going to walk to the door. I'm going to give them a big hello. I'm going to let them know I'm happy they made it in. I'm super pumped that they made it in, and that we're going to have a great night. That's what you got to do. You've got to bring that for them. Otherwise, what are you doing there?
Tell us a little bit about, your recovery and how you kind of recover. Are you taking one day off a week? Are you doing any sort of cold and hot therapy? What does sort of your recovery plan look like?
Um, the same thing. It depends on what's going on, and it depends. Like even now, man, it is hot in Montreal. It is like hot. It's been crazy. It's been like 30 in the gym, and the humidity's been getting so high. If it gets much more humid, I think kickboxing is technically going to be an aqua aerobics class because it's almost like we're moving through water. It's just been,
Wow.
it's just, yeah, it's been brutal. The first thing for recovery for me is sleep and good nutrition. If I'm not sleeping and I'm not eating well, then it's going to be hard to sustain anything. So that's number one. The other reason why, or the other thing that I do as well, like I said, I kind of divide up how I'm going to approach my workouts during the week and make sure that I can recover from it. I often see people that will come to the gym, they'll get super pumped, they get super excited. They start training everything. They come to every class and they are not recovering. They are just falling apart. I have one guy, and this guy is great. He is so disciplined. He came in. He was kind of bummed. I was like, man, I let myself get out of shape over COVID, and you can see he moved well. He moves well in kickboxing, but you know he's carrying a lot of extra weight. He got so excited and so disciplined with his workout that he started coming to every class. He's coming to strength and conditioning. He's coming to kickboxing. And then he started coming to jiu-jitsu. But you could see it was too much. And then I found out that he was doing some warehouse work. Between the warehouse work where he's lifting heavy stuff and all this training, he was burning out. So he's not coming to jiu-jitsu. I told him that's a great choice.
Mm.
Great decision.
Mm.
Because now I'm seeing that he's starting to go back up. Everything is going in the right direction. So it's super important to listen to your body and to figure it out. But the very first thing, you got to make sure those two things are dialed in. You got to have your sleep and your nutrition. You're not going to, outwork out a bad diet and, not sleeping. Eventually this catches everyone. Yeah, when I was 16, you could, run around like a maniac and, not take care of yourself. But it's much better to build the habit early. So I make sure that, those two things are on point, and then I plan my week accordingly. And if there are some surprises in a week, I'm not feeling it, you got to be willing to make some adjustments.
Mm. Tell us about your pre and post, nutrition. What does that look like for, say, you're going to go do a kettlebell training? What are you eating? What supplements are you taking pre and
Yeah.
post?
For me, I don't like to eat right before.
Mm.
I have some friends that I would train with, and these guys, what they will consume before we work out, I'm always shocked. I can't believe it. I remember walking to the gym with a good friend of mine, and on the way to the gym, he's like, "You mind if we stop in here? I just want to get some food." I think he ate like half a chicken. He ate like chicken before we went to train.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna throw up. He's like, no, I gotta eat something, man. I'm like, okay. Like, you ate like half my food for the day. But yeah, not me. I will usually not eat much at all before I go train, and then I will try to eat as quickly after that I can. For me, shakes are really, really good, especially if I've got a lot of running around to do. I've got 2 kids, so they're getting older, but I'm still a taxi service. So between running for the animals, running for my kids, and running around for everything else, to make sure that I can get enough protein, shake is a really, really good way to go. And something, especially if I'm really kind of, doing a lot of strength endurance or a lot of jujitsu and like something in the heat, something that, is good with electrolytes that I can kind of, replenish. Water is great, but I've definitely had those classes where, you're like this after, and if you don't have something that's going to kind of bring you back to life, it's going to be a really long day.
For people out there who aren't familiar with your certification program and how that works,
Yeah.
give us some insight. Like, is there a few levels? Is it an hour once a week? Kind of just give us some history on what people can expect.
So the kettlebell, there's a few different certifications that are offered through Agatsu, and the kettlebell one is a 2-day course, and they're 2 full days. There's so much information in it, not just the technical information, although there is a lot of that, because it's not just like, often people refer to kettlebell, they go hard style kettlebell or sport style, and I don't believe in any of those things. I think it's just marketing nonsense. I think you either move a weight efficiently towards your goal or you don't. I mean, you got arms, hips, a trunk, you're either mechanically efficient or you're not. And it depends on what your goal is. So we teach things that would be considered hard style. There are a lot of high tension techniques. And then I also teach things that are, classic lifts that I learned in Russia. So by not being kind of married to one way of doing it, it helps me to teach people and help them develop a much bigger toolbox. So because of that, we're talking about a 2-day course where, it's packed full of information. And I try to give seminars, in as many places as possible so that I can share that information with people. And then the testing is done on the second day. The level 1 course is not just for trainers. It's for anybody who wants to take it as like an intensive to get really good with a kettlebell and get a really good foundation. And for trainers, it's great because not only will I show you how to use the tools and get the most out of them, but also how to break down the exercises for a wide variety of people. People that are incredibly athletic, that's great. It's fun to train them. But what about the person who can't chew gum and tie their shoes at the same time, because that requires too much coordination? You need to be able to teach them as well, right? So I break all of that down, break everything down into very thin slices so it's easy to teach. So that's a 2-day course. We have an upper body and a lower body mobility. That's also a 2-day course. And we use different movements as these touchstone movements that if you can do them, they will require certain attributes that you would want to develop, right? In terms of your personal practice for mobility and movement. It could be something like being able to do a pistol squat. And it's like, look, you're still a good person if you can't do a pistol squat, but to be able to do that requires a certain amount of flexibility, right? That flexibility, that mobility, that stability. So these are all desirable things. So what we'll do is we take the pistol as an example, as a goal, and then we reverse engineer from there. Okay, this is how you're going to work from the floor up, working on your ankles, working on your feet, working on the foot arches, working on everything to be able to develop, to be able to do that. And then you get all of the attributes and all of the amazing things that come from that journey. Same thing with muscle ups, same thing with other things. So those courses, the upper and lower body for mobility, are also 2 days. We do an intensive in Montreal that you get both certifications, the upper and lower, in 1 week. So you come in for a few days and you get that. We actually have one of those that's coming up in August. So August starts tomorrow. So there's one next month that's coming up. And before COVID, we were doing some movement weeks where we would expose people to different training modalities over the course of a week. Some were really cool, like Iceland and Bali, and a bunch of different trainers, along with myself and Sarah Claire. And I'm hoping to get back to those as well, because as much as I love the results I'm seeing from the online stuff that we're launching, and I just launched an online light club course. The Mace one we're editing now, and then there's a heavy club one that's coming. So the online stuff is great, but I like to see everyone, and I like to expose people to all these different ways of training, and see them getting excited about it, and then also hear the results that they've gotten, which nothing beats that. And now that the world is getting a little bit more normal, it's easier to travel.
How can kettlebells help, say, bodybuilders and athletes in general? Like, what would be your main message for the athletes, bodybuilders that are watching, and why they should incorporate kettlebells into their
Yeah,
routine?
that's a great question. I think what's so interesting is I have seen so many different people from so many different facets of training and walks of life make amazing use of the kettlebell, that as long as you have an open mind and you want to experiment, you're going to find in it such a versatile tool. I was training a guy, teaching the kettlebell fundamentals, and who was a very good power lifter. And I remember we were about to do like circuits with this group in a workshop, and he said, "Look, I have a meet coming up. I have a competition coming up. I don't want to do the circuits because it might be too much for what I need to kind of stay on track with my training for today." So I said, "I totally understand." He said, "But could I show you maybe something that I've been doing and using the kettlebells?" I'm like, "Yeah, and show everybody. That'd be really cool. Thanks." So he was doing like sumo deadlift. And
Mm.
then he would do his sumo deadlifts, and then he would come over and then he would work with the bells and just work on a certain range of motion with the bells. And I was like, "Oh, that's very cool." And so it just kind of showed you that someone that's, in one area that maybe, the main apparatus is the barbell, he still found a lot of use for the kettlebell. And then the same thing for bodybuilders. Bodybuilders that want to, do rounds with the kettlebell to get like a crazy sweat and to kind of, get an amazing calorie burn instead of getting on the treadmill doing the same thing over and over again. That's an interesting option for them. It's also an interesting option in the lifts. It's not that a thing is necessarily one lift would be better doing it like this or like that, but the variety might be really good. Some people, their mobility is horrible for a front squat with the barbell, but they can grab the kettlebells and work the anterior chain like that. They can start to do front squats and they can play around with some interesting heavy weight. Overhead squat is amazing with a barbell, but it's different with the kettlebell. It's not necessarily better, but it's different because with the barbell, you have everything reached up and you kind of locked out. The kettlebells, your arms are fighting to kind of move all over the place and you're working to stabilize in a different way. So adding that variety to the training is a really powerful tool. It just takes an open mind. Sometimes we're a little too quick to look at something and go, whatever, like you see it online all the time. This is garbage. This is no good. This is how much stuff do you potentially miss because you dismiss it as garbage right away. I have a game that I play with myself called Shut Up, We'll Discuss It in the Car. So if, maybe I'm taking a class. This game actually started because I was in a jiu-jitsu class with my girlfriend. And after the class, she looks at me and she goes, well, you thought that was crap. And I go, I didn't say anything. And she goes, oh, no. And I go, oh, I felt bad. I'm like, do you think anybody else knew? And then she's like, no, I just think if you know I knew what you were thinking. And I said, yeah. It was crap, and I did think it was crap. But then I thought to myself, well, that's not really good. Well, one, I wouldn't want to, offend the teacher. Two, that's not good, because what if he did say something was good? I really did dismiss it very quickly. So I said, okay, this is the game. Next time I have that thought when somebody's teaching something, I'm immediately going to tell myself, shut up, we'll discuss it in the car. And then I'm not allowed to have another thought about it until my hands are on the steering wheel. I can't have any negative thoughts about this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to be the best student I can be. I'm going to listen to everything this person says, and I'm going to try to do exactly what they're saying. So I'm going to understand it as best that I can. And sure enough, the next time I went to a class and I had somebody similar teaching, I had a couple of thoughts about it, and I was like, shut up, we'll discuss it in the car. As soon as I got down, I put my hands in the steering wheel. I was like, all right, well, that was, but I did get a lot more out of the session because that. So now that's the game that I play whenever I'm in a class, and also when I see something online, when I'm looking at something, it's natural if you have a lot of experience with something that you've got bias and that you're gonna have a knee-jerk reaction when someone shows you. So I try to kind of tamper that a little bit and just go, all right, what am I looking at? And then if it looks like there might be something there, you got to spend time with it. That's the only way to find out. You got to be willing to invest a little bit of time before you know. And sometimes people will ask me and they'll say, what do you think of this? I say, honestly, I don't know. I've never seen one. I've never touched it. I've never done it, or I haven't trained with that person. I can't really give you much of an understanding about it until I do.
That's some great insight. Is there anything you wanted to touch upon, or any tips or anything you wanted to, before we wrap up today?
What I think, especially because, I'm known for kettlebells, and I think we touched on a little bit already that there's so much information available to people now. So someone watching this, maybe they get interested in kettlebells, maybe we're talking about body weight training or barbells or bodybuilding, whatever it is they're doing. We have at our fingertips now more information than we've ever had before. We talked about the online courses that I offer and all these different things. As someone who teaches and someone who invests all this time trying to help people, I think the most important thing I can share with anyone is to take time in trying to find that person who's going to teach you and become, if I could give you one piece of advice, and it has nothing to do with me and has nothing to do with anything that I'm selling. I'm trying to give you an actual piece of advice that will help you. Because if a teacher doesn't want to do that first and foremost, then they're useless. So my piece of advice to you is, whatever it is you're getting excited about, if you're excited about bodybuilding, if you're excited about parkour, rock climbing, kettlebells, anything, before you start to pick a teacher, before you pick a gym, before you pick anything, become a subject matter expert. That is a very attainable goal, and it is going to help you find a good teacher. So what does that mean? You take something like bodybuilding. You want to get into bodybuilding, right? Maybe you watched Pumping Iron. You lost your mind. You're like, this is amazing. Yes, right? Arnold. What you need to do is start watching documentaries. First thing, if you like reading, get some books about bodybuilding. Find out who the legends are. Find out what the training is like. Find out who are these, the top people now and who are the top people. So become a bit of a subject matter expert. Then, and only then, when you go looking for a coach, you go looking, to find somebody to help guide you, you'll know what to ask them. And you'll also have a deeper understanding of what they're talking. And this doesn't have to take an insanely long time, but spend a little bit of time becoming a subject matter expert, and that will save you a ton of time later, especially if you're learning something that you might have to unlearn later because, 2 years in, you realize, no, that person that I got wasn't very good at that thing. Now that I've been training and learning all this stuff, I realize, oh, my teacher's horrible. I gotta get a much better one, and I'm gonna have to undo all these things. So become a subject matter expert in whatever it is that's interesting you, and then, the sky's the limit.
Just super random, but I'm going to ask this. Have you ever tried stand-up comedy?
No,
You should try it.
But I've had that remark said to me many times. Most of the time it was from my teachers.
I did a few stand-up comedies myself just to kind of get out there, because I do a lot of public speaking, but my public speaking coach was like, oh, you should just get out and do some stand-up comedy just to kind of, but it might be a good, just to have some fun, just a thought, just putting it out there.
I have friends that are actors, and once one of them called me. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm on my way to an audition. He goes, what? And I was like, yeah, I was in the car, and they had an open casting call, so I just turned the car around, and I'm driving to the audition now. He goes, you don't act? I said, no, I'm just curious. I want to know what it was like. So I went into line with everybody. I got the sides on my phone, and everyone was terrified. And I walked in. They had the camera in my face. They had a panel of people, and I walked out, and I said, oh, yeah, that was wild, man. He goes, were you nervous? And I'm like, no, just talking. And but it was an experience. I think people should do that. If you get, like I said, if you're interested in something, life is short. If you're interested in something, go do it. And if you're afraid, what are you afraid of? That they were going to think I'm not a good actor? I'm not an actor. What would I care?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that mentality. Did you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
I don't know, man. But first, I haven't seen you in so long. How are things going? I see that you're busy.
Yeah. Very busy. Very busy. Yeah, lots is happening with Nutrabolics, gearing up. We're going to launch a TV series this year, and it's called Supplement Sharks. Been working on that for the last 5 years. We got our first.
I also invited me on to come onto the podcast. I took a look and I listened at some of the other ones, and I see you have some great guests on as well.
Yeah.
And, I know from doing a podcast, it is such a grind to do that and to put out your product line and to do all these different things. So you're doing an unbelievable job to be able to keep everything on track and keep everything pushing through like that is amazing.
Well, it's actually, I have a great team. I got to surround myself with the best. That's my saying all the time. Let's get the best people and let's let them fly. I always say, one of my lines is, I don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. I hire them to tell me what to do. You know? Like, so we got a great team, and things are great. We put out a new pre-workout recently, Supernova Legacy. It's been our biggest seller ever. The feedback has just been pouring in. Only problem we've had is just being able to keep up with the production, which is a good problem to have. So
that's the best problem to have.
Yeah.
No wants a full warehouse.
No, but other than that, things are great, and we're just rocking and rolling. We're on our 22nd year of business.
That's amazing.
So, what can I say, right? We're still here. We're still rocking. I'm still with the same business partner for 22 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we started it, and, when we were just 20-year-old kids, and here we're still rocking. So
Yeah. Well,
Things are good.
is when you love what you do and you're
Mm,
really passionate about what you do, that shines through.
mm.
People see that. You know, there's companies that start, they're a flash in the pan, and sometimes they make some noise for a little bit of time, but will they last? Will they sustain? Because what's the fuel that's really driving it? If the fuel that's driving it is really people that love what they do and want to get it out to other people, um, you can see that it's infectious.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that having a strong foundation is something that I really pride myself in, and making sure that, hey, let's have the best, strongest foundation and let's build upwards, right? Like you can't build a castle without putting the bricks in
Yeah,
individually, one by one. So, we've been really fortunate as well. And, thank God we made it through COVID, had a bit of a rough time there, but, we're through it. And we had our second best year was last year, believe it or not. It was just
amazing.
explosive. So in 22 years, I was like, wow, like hopefully this keeps going. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, the guests that we've had on the Perform podcast definitely had a great opportunity to meet a very diverse, group of people. Obviously, a lot of, famous, entertainment people, gold medalists, NFL, you name it, right? And I mean, that's what our brand is about, is just catering to a wide range of people, trying to get the best people to, add value, add education. And, after this, we're going to be distributing the podcast, through YouTube, Spotify, Apple iTunes. So this is just an opportunity for people to get on right now, get the live version uncut,
Yeah.
and hopefully they enjoyed it and get some value from today. But you've been an amazing guest, and I really appreciate it, Shawn. And thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely my pleasure, and really thank you very much for the invitation. I hope that people enjoyed it, and if they have questions about kettlebell training or anything, don't be shy. You can reach out to me.
Perfect. All right, man. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Take it easy.